The midnight call. The meeting that changed everything. Nathan Sterling stared at the contract in front of him, the words blurring together after 14 straight hours of negotiations. His fingers drummed against the polished conference table as his legal team debated Clause 17 for the third time. The Sterling Tower acquisition would cement his position as the youngest billionaire in commercial real estate, but tonight, the victory felt hollow. His phone vibrated. Unknown number. Nathan ignored it. In his world, important people had his direct line. Everyone else could wait. The phone buzzed again. Same number. His assistant, Thomas, glanced up from across the table, concern flickering in his eyes. They had worked together for 6 years, long enough for Thomas to know Nathan never answered unknown calls during critical meetings. "Gentlemen, excuse me," Nathan said, pushing back from the table. The plush carpet muffled his footsteps as he walked toward the window. Boston glittered below him like scattered diamonds, a city he had conquered one building at a time. His father would have been proud. Or would he? Nathan answered the call. "Sterling. Mr. Sterling?" The voice belonged to a young woman, hesitant but determined. "This is Jennifer Park from Boston Memorial Hospital. I need to talk to you about Claire Montgomery." The name hit Nathan like a physical blow. Claire. His ex-wife. The woman he had married 3 years ago in a ceremony overlooking the harbor. The woman who had asked for a divorce 9 months ago, and he had let her go without a single question. What about her? Nathan forced his voice to remain steady, professional. "She's here at the hospital, Mr. Sterling. She gave birth an hour ago to a baby boy. There were complications during delivery, and she's asking for you." The phone nearly slipped from Nathan's hand. His reflection in the window showed a man who prided himself on control, on never being caught off guard, now looking like someone had pulled the ground from beneath his feet. "That's impossible," he whispered, his mind calculating dates, timeline, their final argument. 9 months ago. Right before the divorce. The weight of realization. Jennifer continued talking, but Nathan barely heard her. A son. He had a son. The woman he had promised to cherish forever had been pregnant when she asked for a divorce, and he had been too blind, too consumed by business deals and board meetings to notice. "Mr. Sterling, are you there?" "Which room?" His voice came out rough, unfamiliar to his own ears. "4th floor, room 412. But Mr. Sterling, she's been through a lot tonight. Please be gentle." Nathan ended the call and stood frozen, watching the city below. Behind him, through the glass walls, his team waited. The Sterling Tower deal represented 18 months of work, hundreds of millions of dollars, the culmination of everything he had built since his father's death. 9 months ago, he would not have hesitated. The deal came first. Always. He pulled out his phone and texted Thomas. "Family emergency. Close without me." The response came immediately. "Everything okay?" Nathan looked at the message, then at the conference room where his future waited, bright and certain and utterly meaningless. "No," he typed. "But it needs to be." Racing against time. The elevator descent felt endless. Nathan's hands shook as he pressed the button for the parking garage. A son. The word echoed in his mind with every floor that passed. He thought about Claire, about the distance that had grown between them in those final months. She had started wearing looser clothes. He remembered that now. She had cancelled dinner plans, claiming fatigue. She had stopped arguing with him about his late nights at the office, and he had taken that as acceptance rather than what it truly was, resignation. His black Mercedes waited in its reserved spot. Nathan slid behind the wheel and pulled out of the garage, the city blurring past his windows. He passed the art gallery where they had their first date, where Claire had laughed at his terrible attempts to interpret modern art. He passed the coffee shop where she used to bring him breakfast when he worked through the night, back when she still believed he would change. The hospital was 15 minutes away. Nathan made it in 9. A father's first steps. Boston Memorial's parking lot stretched before him, nearly empty at this hour. Nathan parked and sat in his car, gripping the steering wheel until his knuckles turned white. How did you prepare to meet your child for the first time? How did you face the woman you had failed so completely? He thought about calling his sister, Rebecca. She would know what to say, how to help him make sense of this. But what would he tell her? That he had been so focused on building his empire that he had missed his wife's pregnancy? That his ambition had cost him everything that mattered? Nathan stepped out of the car. The night air was cool against his face, grounding him. He walked toward the entrance, each step feeling heavier than the last. The automatic doors slid open, releasing the familiar scent of antiseptic and anxiety. A security guard nodded at him from behind a desk. Nathan wondered if he looked as terrified as he felt. The elevator to the 4th floor was empty, giving him a moment to breathe, to think, to panic. When the doors opened, he stepped into a quiet hallway painted in soft greens and blues. A nurse's station sat to his left, and a young Asian woman looked up as he approached. "Mr. Sterling?" she asked. He nodded, not trusting his voice. "I'm Jennifer. Thank you for coming." She studied his face with kind eyes that seemed to see right through his expensive suit to the frightened man underneath. "She's in room 412. The baby is in the nursery, but we can bring him to her room when you're ready." "I need to see Claire first," Nathan said. Jennifer nodded and led him down the hallway, past rooms where new families were beginning their journeys. She stopped at a door near the end of the hall. "Mr. Sterling, whatever happened between you two, she had her reasons for not telling you. Just remember that." Then Jennifer was gone, and Nathan stood alone outside room 412, his heart pounding so hard he could feel it in his throat. He raised his hand to knock, then stopped. This was his ex-wife, the mother of his child, a stranger carrying his DNA. He pushed the door open and stepped inside, ready to face the consequences of every choice he had made. The hospital confrontation. The woman he failed. Claire lay in the hospital bed, smaller than Nathan remembered, her chestnut hair spread across the white pillow like silk against snow. Even in sleep, exhaustion marked her features with shadows beneath her eyes that spoke of months of struggle, not just one difficult night. And 4 dripped steadily into her arm, and monitors beeped softly, measuring a heartbeat he had once known better than his own. Nathan moved closer, his Italian leather shoes silent on the linoleum floor. For the first time in 9 months, he truly looked at Claire. Not through the filter of anger or wounded pride, but as she actually was. There were changes he had missed during their brief, cold meetings in the lawyer's office. A fullness to her face that pregnancy had left behind. A thin scar on her right hand that had not been there before. A simple silver necklace he did not recognize, delicate and clearly meaningful. He pulled a chair close to the bed and sat down, unsure what to do with his hands. In boardrooms, he commanded millions with a gesture. In negotiations, he could read people like open books. But here, watching the steady rise and fall of Claire's breathing, he felt completely lost. How long had it been since he had really seen her? He thought back to their marriage, trying to pinpoint when she had started slipping away. Was it after his father's death, when he became obsessed with proving himself? Was it during the Hamilton project, when he worked 90-hour weeks for 3 months straight? Or had it been earlier, more gradual, a slow erosion neither of them noticed until everything crumbled, the awakening? Claire's eyes opened suddenly, unfocused at first, then sharpening with awareness. When she saw him, her expression cycled through surprise, confusion, and finally something that looked like weary acceptance. "Jennifer called you," she said. Her voice was hoarse, tired. It was not a question. "She was worried about you." Nathan kept his tone neutral, though questions burned in his mind like fire. "She said there were complications." Claire closed her eyes briefly. When she opened them again, tears threatened to spill over. I told her not to. I specifically told her not to call you. Why? The word came out sharper than Nathan intended. Why didn't you want me to know about any of this? Please don't do this now, Claire whispered, turning her face toward the window where the Boston skyline glowed against the night. I just can't do this now. Nathan felt familiar anger rising in his chest. This was how their marriage had ended, with Claire shutting down, refusing to talk, leaving him on the outside of whatever she was feeling. But then he looked at the four in her arm, the pallor of her skin, the exhaustion etched into every line of her face. He took a breath, forcing himself to soften. Okay. We don't have to talk about it now. But Claire, I want to see him. Our son. I want to see my son. A mother's love. Something flickered across Claire's face. Fear, perhaps. Or protectiveness. He's perfect, she said quietly. 7 pounds, 6 ounces. They took him to the nursery about half an hour ago. His name is Owen. Owen. Nathan let the name settle over him. You named him already. I had 9 months to think about it. There was no accusation in Claire's voice, just stating a fact. Owen was my grandfather's name. He raised me after my parents died. I wanted our son to have that strength, that kindness. Nathan remembered Claire's grandfather vaguely. A quiet man who had attended their wedding, who had hugged Claire tight and whispered something in her ear that made her cry. He had died 2 years ago, and Nathan had been in Singapore closing a deal, arriving home 3 days after the funeral. Can I see him? Nathan asked. Claire studied his face for a long moment. Jennifer can take you to the nursery. But Nathan, I need you to understand something. I didn't keep this from you to hurt you. I did it to protect him. Protect him from what? From his own father? From the man you became. Claire's voice cracked. From the man who forgot we existed unless we fit into his schedule. From the man who missed our 3rd anniversary because a client wanted dinner. From the man who looked at me like I was an obligation instead of the person he promised to love forever. The truth unveiled. The words hit Nathan harder than any business failure ever had. He wanted to argue, to defend himself, but the truth in Claire's eyes stopped him cold. I found out I was pregnant 2 weeks before I asked for the divorce, Claire continued, her voice steadier now. I was terrified and excited and wanted so badly to tell you. But Nathan, you had forgotten my birthday that week. You had cancelled our weekend trip for the 4th time. You came home at midnight and asked me to be quiet because you had a conference call at 6 in the morning. Nathan remembered that night. The Tokyo deal had been falling apart, and he had been on the phone for 18 hours straight trying to salvage it. I realized something that night, Claire said, wiping tears from her cheeks. I realized that if I told you about the baby, one of 2 things would happen. Either you would not care, and that would destroy me. Or you would care, and you would resent us for interfering with your ambitions. Either way, our child would grow up with a father who was never really there. So you decided I didn't deserve to know? Nathan's voice rose despite his best efforts. You decided to take that choice away from me? I decided to protect my child from growing up the way I did, Claire said, her voice fierce now despite her exhaustion. Do you know what it's like to have a parent who is physically present but emotionally absent? To always wonder why you're not enough to make them stay, to make them care? I lived that nightmare, Nathan. I was not going to let our son live it too. Meeting Owen. The silence that followed felt heavy with all the words they had never said, all the conversations they had avoided, all the distance they had let grow between them. A soft knock interrupted them. Jennifer stood in the doorway, holding a small bundle wrapped in blue blankets. I thought you might want to meet someone, she said gently. Nathan stood so quickly his chair scraped against the floor. Jennifer approached and carefully placed the baby in Claire's arms. Nathan watched as Claire's entire face transformed, softening with a love so pure and complete it made his chest ache. "Hello, my sweet boy," Claire whispered, her finger tracing the baby's tiny cheek. "Mommy's here." Nathan moved closer, drawn by an invisible force he could not name. And then he saw his son for the first time. Owen was tiny, perfect, with a dusting of dark hair and skin still pink from birth. His eyes were closed, his little fists curled near his face. As Nathan watched, Owen yawned, a movement so small and innocent it brought unexpected tears to Nathan's eyes. "Can I hold him?" Nathan's voice came out rough, uncertain. Claire hesitated, then nodded. "Support his head." Jennifer helped transfer Owen into Nathan's arms, adjusting his position until the baby lay secure against Nathan's chest. The weight was almost nothing, but the responsibility felt enormous. Nathan looked down at his son, at this tiny person who shared his DNA, who he had not known existed an hour ago, who had already changed everything. A father's promise. Owen opened his eyes, unfocused but somehow seeming to look right at Nathan. In that moment, standing in a hospital room with his ex-wife watching and his newborn son in his arms, Nathan Sterling felt his entire world shift. All the deals he had closed, all the buildings he had developed, all the money he had made meant nothing compared to this. This tiny life depending on him. This second chance he did not deserve but desperately wanted. "I'm sorry," Nathan whispered, not sure if he was talking to Owen or to Claire or to both of them. "I'm so sorry I wasn't there. But I'm here now, and I swear to you, I will do better. I will be better." Claire watched him with cautious eyes, years of disappointment written in her expression. "Words are easy, Nathan. You've made promises before." "I know." Nathan looked from Owen to Claire, his heart breaking at the distance between them, at all the trust he had shattered. "But I'm not asking you to believe me. I'm asking you to let me prove it." Jennifer quietly excused herself, leaving them alone. Owen began to fuss, and Claire reached for him. Nathan reluctantly handed his son back, watching as Claire settled Owen against her chest, rocking him gently until he calmed. "The doctors want to keep me here for at least 3 days, Claire said quietly. "There was significant bleeding during delivery. They want to monitor me." "I'll stay," Nathan said immediately. "Nathan, you have the Sterling Tower deal." "I don't care about the deal." The words came out with a conviction that surprised even him. "Claire, I spent 9 months believing you left me for someone else. I spent 9 months throwing myself into work to avoid feeling anything. And in one phone call, I realized I've been running from the only thing that ever mattered. The long night ahead." Claire looked at him for a long moment, searching his face for something. Truth, perhaps. Or sincerity. Finally, she nodded. "You can stay tonight." "But Nathan, I meant what I said. Owen comes first. If you can't commit to that, if your business is still more important, then I need you to walk away now. Because I will not let my son grow up wondering why his father chose everything else over him." "I understand," Nathan said, pulling the chair closer to Claire's bed. "And I'm not going anywhere." They sat in silence as the night deepened around them, Owen sleeping peacefully in Claire's arms. Nathan watched them both, committing every detail to memory. The way Claire's fingers curled protectively around Owen's tiny body. The small sounds Owen made in his sleep. The monitors beeping steadily, measuring heartbeats and breaths and precious time. His phone buzzed repeatedly in his pocket. Thomas, probably. The legal team. Board members wondering where he had gone. Nathan pulled out his phone, turned it off, and set it on the windowsill. For the first time in years, the outside world could wait. The path to redemption. Dawn of understanding. The first light of morning crept through the hospital window, painting Claire's room in shades of gold and amber. Nathan had not slept. He had spent the night in the uncomfortable chair beside Claire's bed, watching her and Owen rest, his mind replaying every moment of their relationship, seeing clearly now what he had been too blind to notice before. Around 4 in the morning, Owen had woken hungry and crying. Nathan had watched in awe as Claire, despite her exhaustion and pain, had fed their son with a gentleness that made his heart ache. She moved like she had been doing this forever, not just for a few hours, and Nathan realized she had probably practiced in her mind 1,000 times, preparing for this moment alone. "You should go home and shower," Claire said softly as the sun rose higher. Owen slept in the small bassinet beside her bed, his tiny chest rising and falling with each breath. "Get some rest. I know you haven't slept. I don't want to leave." Nathan's voice was quiet but firm. "What if something happens? What if you need something?" Claire's expression softened slightly. "Nathan, I've been doing this alone for 9 months. A few hours won't make a difference." The words were not meant to hurt, but they cut deep anyway. Nathan stood and walked to the window, looking out at the city waking up below. Somewhere down there, his company continued without him. Meetings were being rescheduled. The Sterling Tower deal was probably in chaos. His phone, still turned off on the windowsill, likely held dozens of urgent messages. He did not care. The visitor. A knock on the door interrupted the silence. A woman in her late 50s entered, wearing scrubs and carrying a clipboard. Her name tag read Dr. Patricia Morrison, Chief of Obstetrics. "Good morning, Claire," Dr. Morrison said with a warm smile. "How are you feeling?" "Sore. Tired. But okay," Claire answered. Dr. Morrison checked Claire's vitals, examined her chart, and asked several questions about pain levels and symptoms. Nathan watched anxiously, trying to decipher the doctor's professional expressions. "Your blood work looks better than last night," Dr. Morrison finally said. "But I want to keep you here for observation. The hemorrhaging you experienced was significant, Claire. You need rest and monitoring." "How significant?" Nathan asked, his voice tight with concern. Dr. Morrison turned to him. "You must be the father." "I'm Dr. Morrison. Nathan Sterling." He shook her hand. "Please tell me what happened." The doctor glanced at Claire, who nodded slightly. "Claire experienced a postpartum hemorrhage during delivery. We managed to control it, but she lost a considerable amount of blood. With proper rest and care, she should make a full recovery. But she needs to take it easy for the next few weeks. No stress, plenty of fluids, and absolutely no heavy lifting." Nathan's hands clenched at his sides. "How close was it?" "Close enough that I'm glad we were here," Dr. Morrison said honestly. "Claire is strong. She fought hard for herself and for Owen. But she should not have been dealing with this alone." After Dr. Morrison left, Nathan turned to Claire. "You could have died. But I didn't." Claire's voice was calm, but Nathan could see the fear lurking behind her eyes. "I'm fine. Owen is fine. That's what matters." "Claire, what if Jennifer had not called me? What if something had happened and I never knew? What if Owen had grown up without either of us?" Breaking point. "Don't." Claire's voice cracked. "Don't stand there and act like you would have made a difference, Nathan. You were not there for the morning sickness that lasted all day. You were not there when I had to leave work early because I could not stop throwing up. You were not there for the ultrasounds, the doctor's appointments, the nights I lay awake terrified something would go wrong. You were not there, and that was my choice because I knew you would not choose to be there anyway." The words hung in the air like broken glass. Nathan wanted to argue, to defend himself, but he could not. Because she was right. Even if she had told him, would he have shown up? Would he have put her and the baby before his meetings, his deals, his relentless pursuit of success? "You're right," Nathan said quietly, the admission costing him more than any business failure ever had. "You're absolutely right. I would have promised to be there and then found excuses. I would have sent my assistant to pick up whatever you needed. I would have checked my phone during ultrasounds and taken calls during doctor's appointments. I would have failed you exactly the way you knew I would. Claire stared at him, surprise flickering across her face. In all their years together, Nathan had rarely admitted fault. His pride had always been too strong, his need to be right too ingrained. But Claire, I'm asking you to believe that man is not who I want to be anymore, Nathan continued, moving closer to her bed. Last night, when Jennifer called and told me you had given birth, I felt like someone had reached into my chest and ripped out my heart. Not because you hid it from me, but because I understood why you had to. I understood that I had become the kind of man my own wife could not trust with the most important news of her life. A mother's fear. Tears streamed down Claire's face. Do you know what the hardest part was? It was not being pregnant alone or scared about labor. It was grieving the marriage we should have had. Every kick, every movement, I imagined telling you and seeing joy on your face. But then I would remember the last time I tried to share something important with you. Do you remember what it was? Nathan shook his head, shame burning in his chest. I had won the Architectural Digest Award for the community center design. It was the biggest achievement of my career. I called you, so excited, and you said, "That's great, honey, send me the details and I'll have my assistant arrange flowers." You did not even ask what I won or what it meant. You outsourced my happiness to your staff. Nathan felt like he had been punched. He did not remember that conversation at all, which somehow made it worse. Her triumph had been so insignificant to him that it had not even registered. "I'm sorry," he whispered, the words feeling inadequate but necessary. "I'm so sorry, Claire. For all of it. For every time I made you feel like you did not matter. For every promise I broke. For becoming someone you could not recognize." Owen stirred in his bassinet, making small sounds. Claire reached for him instinctively, wincing slightly at the movement. Nathan quickly moved to help, carefully lifting Owen and placing him in Claire's arms. "Thank you," Claire said softly. They sat in silence for a moment, watching Owen. Nathan marveled at how much the baby looked like Claire around the eyes, but he could see hints of himself in Owen's chin and the shape of his ears. The test. Nathan's phone suddenly buzzed on the windowsill. Once. Twice. 10 times in rapid succession. Claire glanced at it, then at Nathan, waiting. This was a test. Nathan knew it. His old self would have checked those messages, would have found some urgent crisis that required immediate attention, would have slowly been pulled back into the world he knew instead of staying in this uncertain new one. He walked to the window, picked up his phone, and without looking at the screen, powered it off completely. Then he opened the window and looked down at the parking lot 4 floors below. "What are you doing?" Claire asked. "Making a choice," Nathan said. He drew his arm back and threw his phone out the window. It sailed through the morning air and shattered on the pavement below. Claire's eyes widened. "Nathan, that phone probably cost more than most people's monthly rent." "I don't care." Nathan closed the window and returned to her bedside. "I spent 3 years of our marriage with that phone attached to my hand. I let it interrupt dinners, vacations, conversations, everything. I chose emails over eye contact and conference calls over connection. Not anymore." "That's dramatic, but you'll just buy another phone," Claire said, though Nathan could hear something in her voice. Hope, maybe. Or the beginnings of belief. Maybe. But right now, in this moment, nothing on that phone is more important than being here with you and Owen. And I need you to know that. I need you to see that I can make a different choice. Small steps forward. Jennifer appeared in the doorway carrying a tray of food. "Breakfast for the new mom," she announced cheerfully. Then she noticed Nathan. "You're still here." "I'm still here," Nathan confirmed. Jennifer set the tray on Claire's table and checked her vitals again. Everything looks good. Owen is due for another feeding soon. Are you planning to nurse or use formula? Nursing, Claire said. If I can. You're doing great so far, Jennifer assured her. But it can be exhausting, especially while you're recovering. Don't be afraid to ask for help or supplement with formula if you need to. After Jennifer left, Nathan helped Claire adjust her position so she could eat. He watched as she carefully balanced the tray while holding Owen, saw the wince she tried to hide when she moved wrong, noticed the tremor in her hands from exhaustion. Let me hold him while you eat, Nathan offered. Claire hesitated, then carefully transferred Owen into Nathan's arms. The baby felt even lighter in the morning sun, fragile and perfect and terrifying. Nathan sat back down in his chair, cradling his son against his chest, while Claire ate slowly. I have a guest room, Claire said suddenly. In my apartment. It's small, just a one-bedroom with a converted office space, but there's a fold-out couch. If you want to stay close while I recover, you could use it. Just for a few weeks, until I'm stronger. Nathan's heart leaped, but he kept his voice calm. I would like that. Thank you. This doesn't mean we're getting back together, Claire added quickly. This is about Owen. About you having time with your son and helping while I heal. That's all. I understand, Nathan said, though part of him hoped for more. Whatever you're comfortable with. Learning to be a father. The next 2 days passed in a blur of feedings and diaper changes and visitors. Nathan's sister Rebecca came, bringing clothes and supplies and a fierce hug for both Nathan and Claire. His mother called from Paris, shocked and delighted to learn she was a grandmother, immediately booking a flight home. Nathan learned to change diapers, though his first few attempts were disasters that made even Claire laugh. He learned to support Owen's head properly, to recognize the different types of cries, to warm bottles to exactly the right temperature. Every small task felt monumental, every moment with his son precious. He also learned about Claire's 9 months alone. Her best friend Madison had been her birth partner, had coached her through labor until the complications began. Claire's neighbor, an elderly woman named Mrs. Chen, had been bringing her meals for weeks, worried about the young pregnant woman living alone. Nathan met these people who had filled the space he should have occupied, and instead of jealousy, he felt grateful. They had cared for Claire when he had not. They had been there when he was not. He thanked each of them, meaning it. On the 3rd day, Dr. Morrison cleared Claire for discharge. Take it easy, she warned. No stairs if you can avoid them. Plenty of rest. And Nathan, you're going to need to help. Claire cannot do this alone right now. I will, Nathan promised. Whatever she needs. Going home. Claire's apartment was in a modest building in Cambridge, a world away from Nathan's penthouse in the financial district. The elevator was old and slow, creaking as it carried them to the 3rd floor. Nathan carried Owen's car seat while Claire walked slowly beside him, one hand pressed to her side. The apartment was small but filled with light. Large windows overlooked a park where children played. The walls displayed Claire's architectural sketches and photographs from their early days together. Nathan noticed she had taken down their wedding photo but kept others, pictures of them laughing at some forgotten joke, dancing at his sister's wedding, hiking during their honeymoon in New Zealand. The converted office space that would be Nathan's room held a fold-out couch, a small desk, and a bookshelf filled with Claire's design books. It was cramped and simple and nothing like the luxury Nathan was accustomed to. It felt like home. A new beginning. That first night in Claire's apartment, Nathan woke at 2 in the morning to Owen's cries. He heard Claire stirring, heard her small gasp of pain as she tried to get up. Nathan was out of bed before she could stand, gently lifting Owen from his bassinet. I've got him, Nathan whispered. You rest. He changed Owen's diaper, warmed a bottle of expressed milk Claire had prepared, and settled into the rocking chair by the window. As Owen drank, Nathan looked out at the park below, quiet and peaceful in the moonlight. His phone, the new one he had purchased to replace the one he had thrown away, sat on the desk. Silent. He had not checked his email in 3 days. The Sterling Tower deal had closed without him. Thomas had handled everything. The world had kept turning despite Nathan's absence. And for the first time in his adult life, Nathan was exactly where he needed to be. Claire appeared in the doorway, wrapped in a robe. "You're good with him," she said softly. "He makes it easy," Nathan replied. "He's perfect. Just like his mother." Claire moved closer, sitting on the edge of the fold-out couch. "Nathan, I need to know this is real. I need to know you're not going to wake up one day and realize you miss your old life. Because if you're going to leave, I need you to do it now, before Owen is old enough to remember. Before he learns to love you and then has to learn to live without you." Nathan looked at his son, then at Claire, and felt the absolute certainty settle into his bones. "I'm not going anywhere," he said. "I spent 3 years chasing success and lost everything that mattered. I won't make that mistake again. You and Owen, you're my life now. Everything else is just details." Claire's eyes filled with tears. "Promise me." "I promise," Nathan said. "Not with words you've heard before, but with actions you'll see every day. I promise to show up. To be present. To choose you both, every single time." Owen finished his bottle and Nathan lifted him to his shoulder, patting his back gently until a small burp emerged. Claire laughed, the sound like music after months of silence between them. "Come here," Nathan said, extending his free arm. Claire hesitated, then moved closer, letting Nathan pull her against his side. They sat together in the quiet apartment, their son between them, watching the night sky begin to lighten with the promise of a new day. Outside, the city continued its endless rhythm. But inside this small apartment in Cambridge, 3 people who had almost lost each other were learning to be a family. It would not be easy. Trust, once broken, took time to rebuild. But as Nathan held Claire and Owen close, feeling their warmth, their breathing, their presence, he knew he had finally found what he had been searching for all along. Not success. Not wealth. Not empire. Just love. Simple and complicated and absolutely everything. The end.